I will say, I lost my dog and I'm very sad and I feel very, very sad.
I'm truly sorry to hear about your loss.
And then he starts
Losing
talking.
a pet can feel like losing a family member, and it's perfectly normal to feel this deep sadness. Would you like me to play some soothing music now? Start Spotify. Mood calm.
And can you give me the same answer in French?
Je suis vraiment désolée d'entendre parler de votre
Wow.
perte. Perdre
Yeah.
un animal de
And
compagnie peut
speak
ressembler à...
several languages, maybe 150 different languages. Okay.
Welcome to Tool Thinker.
Yes.
I mean, you're no stranger. You're one of the co-founders.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for joining.
Yes. Glad to be here.
Yes. So just for the viewers out there, I'm talking with Roydell Clark, who has been an entrepreneur for quite some time. I'm just gonna let him introduce himself. Roydell, you wanna just take it away, give some background, and
Yes.
just how your entrepreneurial journey has been.
Yes. How many days you have?
Good, good question.
Joking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, my journey is a very long one. Like I could be Mark's dad, kinda, right? So he's very young. He's like almost one of my son's age. So I've been in the entrepreneurial space for a long time. Growing up in Jamaica, I kind of get the bug. Even in Jamaica, even when I was working at the institute, I would still recognize that some of the people who were selling food on the sidewalk and things like that, I used to interview them and say, like, how much money do you make? Like, right? And they would tell me. And then I was like, compare that with what I'm making in a government job, AC and all that. And then I recognize that maybe entrepreneurial journey is for me. So I start like helping people just take off my tie and just start selling, help people to sell different products on the street and so on. I realized that it was way more fulfilling than just working in corporate or working with the government. And then I kind of emigrated to Canada, and then recognized that the way we do entrepreneur venture in Jamaica, we just can't do it here because we can't just take something and start selling. Right? We need to have a different systems in place, and you have to sign up, you have to register the business, unlike Jamaica where we just entrepreneurially just start selling something, right? So I got into entrepreneur like that. So I just start reading books and then start selling the information in the books. For example, I would go to bookstores. Just to make a long story short, I would go to a bookstore and sit at chapters, for example, here in Ottawa where I live, Ottawa, Canada. And I would just read the book and then put a ad on Kijiji and start selling that information. So that's where it got started, where I just started helping people, just start looking around and see what people are complaining about. And I just start designing a solution for that.
Right.
Yeah. So that's my origin story.
So it's more like a inborn thing, like it's something that you've had in you from a young age, huh?
Yes, I think so, because my great grandmother, you're also a Jamaican, so you understand how entrepreneurial our grandparents are. So my great grandmother used to have her own store. She used to sell things from the house, sell clothes.
My grandmother too, yes.
Yes, and my grandmother now could just look at you and build just make your entire outfit.
Yeah.
So I remember when I was younger, used to watch people coming in and out of the house.
Yeah.
Right. And she would be making clothes for men, women, children, every genre. Right. So that's where I think my dad is also a born entrepreneur, where even in Jamaica, he has his own cabinet making store on Slipe Road, in Kingston, where I was born. So the entire family, even though I kind of go towards academia, right? I was like do well in school, so I was kind of leaning towards that. And then I recognize that creating solution for people is more fulfilling.
Yeah. So it's It's in your blood, eh?
Yes, yes. That's what-
Strangely, my grandmother also used to do dressmaking.
Yeah.
So we used to have people coming into, and they didn't have offices.
Yes.
More like it's
Yes.
more like you get a room in your house and you start repurposing that room
Exactly.
for whatever entrepreneurial journey you're on.
Right.
Yeah, but that's good. Thanks for giving us that background.
Yes.
So you that's your background in terms of where you started out. When you really started to take it seriously.
Yeah. So I studied computer engineering. I started off with computer engineering, then I switched to computer science because I recognized at some point I was going to go into biochemistry. So that was the entire thing. So I was studying to get into biochemistry. So I did like what in Canada we call it, what we'll call in Jamaica A level, we call it OAC.
Mhm.
So I went back and do like physics, chemistry, calculus, and all that to go in biochemistry.
Mhm.
But I changed my mind when I recognized that I'm going to be in a lab.
Right. Right.
So I can't be. I just say okay, to be entrepreneurial because whatever I'm doing, at some point I'm saying, if I'm doing this to work initially, at some point I want to own my business, own
Mhm.
that business that I'm working in.
Yeah.
Then I recognize that the capex for something like that is way too high, right? You need MRI machines, you need a lab, right?
Right.
The capex is way too high. So I look at computer science and say, okay, I'm going to try to work in computer science for a while. And then
Mhm.
all I need is a laptop
Yeah.
to get a software, even back then. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is something that a lot of people don't recognize. Well, I find that like I always ask myself, so many people out there know how to design software and they're coders. They
Yep.
can build it from the ground up, but only a small percentage of them really decide to build a product and
Yep.
sell a product.
Yep.
Most of them are thinking, well, how can I get a job to
Yeah.
build a product for somebody else?
Yes. 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 I think the education system has a lot to do with that because we were never, even going through school, um, there's very few courses that talks about like how you can actually create a business from scratch. The idea was when you leave, when you finish and or you complete this, you will get a good job,
Right.
right? There were people on campus trying to recruit us at that time, right? There was no one trying to recruit us to
Right.
start a business. There was no
Right.
startup, right? Even though at the time Ottawa was regarded as the Silicon Valley North, right?
Mhm.
Because all
Mhm.
of the big like Nortel, so I start working at Nortel, JDS, all of those fiber optics company. I went to work for Dell Computers and all that. So
Mhm.
the core idea here is never to start a business. In
Yeah.
Jamaica, we start businesses a lot just from necessity. Right?
Yeah.
Right? There's
Yeah.
no, you don't, yeah, you need no
But very few of
encouragement.
them scale, right? Like you
Yes,
start it, you
yes,
you make a very mild income,
yes,
but I guess the lack of knowledge to scale is
yes, yes,
is
yes,
right.
yes. So the main thing, like even in Canada, like it's recently we started having entrepreneurial or double degrees or degree where there's a cross section where as a software engineer or whatever
Yeah.
STEM system you're in or just business. Like
Uh-huh.
my son did business and he has to remind people like I took business to do business,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
to go work for someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
even the business major,
Which is,
ironically, is
man.
still thinking about not starting a business. You know?
Yeah. 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 That's very strange.
Yep.
But yeah. Today we really want to talk about a project that you're working on, and
We're working on.
we're working on.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about Invest Ottawa?
Yeah. So Invest Ottawa is an incubator or a organization. I think it's partially funded by the Canadian government for startup founders. When I say founders, sometimes I have a bias because I'm thinking about media, tech, like software engineer, but it's just startup. So that's one of their mandate. And the other mandate, if you're a 10 million or $20 million company, you want to go to 100 million, they will assist you
Right.
there also. And if you're 100 or 200 million, they will try to get you to the billion and so on.
Right.
So, but it's very, very hard to get in because these days everybody has an idea. So you have to go through this interview, and they ask you a lot of questions. Like,
Mhm.
a matter of fact, they switch from the time when I was there. They switch it out now where they have what they call entrepreneur in residence,
Mhm.
where they get real entrepreneur. The guy who interviewed me, he's like a CEO of a going concern, of a business that's happening right now. CEO,
Right.
and COO. He was one of the head, the VP of development or the VP of product at
Right.
Nortel, which was at the time the biggest company on the planet.
Right.
So
Right.
that's the caliber of people who are interviewing us these days. So we went through that interview system 2 days ago.
Mhm.
2 days ago, and we just found out that we were accepted with one of our companies. One of our
Great.
companies. So
Great. Great. Congratulations, sir.
congratulations to you too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again, third person. Yes.
But even just talking about incubators, I think a lot of people that are starting out, they have no idea the next step to take after they have this big idea, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were talking about this, before we came on live. There are a lot of these incubators around, and you can find it just about in any city, pretty
Yes.
much,
True.
right?
True.
Right. So we have one in Toronto.
Yep.
There are a lot of them in the States,
Yep.
in the US, and so if you're living in India or Jamaica, or
Yep.
there's usually one of these in a city
Yep.
that's government funded, and you can go there to get and to get funded, or just to get guidance as
Yeah.
to the next steps that you should be taking
Yeah.
on your journey.
Yeah.
And what else do they offer? What do they offer?
Okay. So it's all new to me this time around. So I looked at some of the things. So what they'll do, they will have workshops in design thinking, jobs to be done. What I'm talking about is framework, right? A
Right.
lot of frameworks, like jobs
Right.
to be done, business model, canvas. They will have people who will come in. That you have 1 hour per month
Right.
talking to advisors who have been there, done that, or continue to be doing the things that they're teaching or advising you on.
Right.
And then, if I'm not mistaken, they will also help with growth if you need growth, marketing,
Right.
new hire, how to hire people, the right
Mhm.
people, and so on. So the entire ecosystem of how to grow a business, scale a business,
Right.
and maybe an exit strategy at the end if you want to go public or so on.
Yeah,
I think
professional support.
yes, professional. Oh, and the other thing too, which I think is good, they have collaboration with different businesses. For
Right.
example, because you and I were in software and AI, we're going
Right.
to require GPUs,
Partners.
hosting, and all that. So they have a lot of uh, strategic
Yeah.
affiliation, so we
Yeah.
can get a lower discount, and even place where if you want like a nice place to rent, like to scale, the entire
Right.
thing is there. Yep.
Which is very important
Yep.
because a lot of times we think that what we're working on is a standalone thing,
Yep.
when in most cases a business is just a part of
Yes.
the chain,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And they are able to connect you with the other parts
Yes.
that
Yep.
you need to get your business to actually work, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Because
mhm.
the sorry to cut you. I want to get this in.
Sure.
Just to strengthen your point there. Sometimes you're not the whole sandwich. You're
Yeah.
just the butter.
Right.
right?
Right.
Right? You're just the mustard, right? So one of the good things is the ecosystem where and just to have like-minded people, because I think being an entrepreneur is a lonely,
Yeah.
it's a lonely path, right?
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of people, entrepreneurism goes through the same type of loneliness and isolation and
Yeah.
mental strain as some people who are going through mental illness, if you think
Right.
about it. Because
Right.
you're
Which
saying you're doing something that you've never done before sometimes.
right.
And people are
Right.
saying, even your family is saying, go get a job.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
educated, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so just being in a place where like-minded people,
Uh-huh.
it's that is in itself is value added.
Yeah. Well, I really wanted to bring that out because I think the most difficult thing for an entrepreneur is having all of these ideas in their heads,
Yep.
but not knowing how to bridge that gap. How do you take this idea
Hmm.
to the next level? How do you turn it into an actual product? How do you take that product and get it into a marketplace and actually get
Right.
it, being used
Right.
by customers,
Yep.
within whatever segment you're going after.
Right.
So it's super important. These incubators are super important.
Yep.
And it seems like they provide like just about all that you need. So if you're out there and you have a big idea, um, a big advice would be go out there, try to find out. I mean,
Yep.
just go online, do
Yep.
some research, check to see if there's an incubator near you
Right.
that you can
Yep.
apply for.
Yep.
Try to get involved and try to connect with a community that's thinking like you. Right?
Yes. Yes. And even if you don't get in, at least they will tell you where your shortcomings are,
Right.
because they will
Right.
point it out and say, okay, here's you this is an idea, but you have no research to see if it's sustainable,
Right.
right? Or
Right.
you are the capex, that's the money, the startup costs is gonna, right, or the competition is a red ocean where there's so much competition and the capex just to start.
Right.
You're so you're already, it's not like don't do it, but at
Yeah.
least they will point it out to kind of give you an idea what you're up against. Because
Yeah.
most of these business, when you're in what's called a deal flow, if
Uh-huh.
you're in an incubator or you're a venture capitalist, for example, and people are bringing business to you all the time. When
Mhm.
another person comes to you and say, okay, I have this great idea, chances are the incubator have seen that same idea
Yeah.
500 times
True. True.
and know all the different scenarios where you might struggle. I'm not saying you
Mhm.
should say, oh, because they tell you that, you're going to say, okay, I'm not doing it. If you
Mhm.
feel strongly, maybe you have the winning sauce, right? But
Mhm.
at least you will be confronted with the information that will make you make better decisions because you have more information from people who are in the know.
Oh,
You know?
100%. Because you can't sit with your idea. At
Yep.
some point in time, you have to get it out there, start getting feedback on your idea. It's so
Yes.
important for
Yes.
you to get some feedback, right?
Yes. Yes.
But so now we're gonna jump into your actual project, and what we're hoping to do here is for you to take us through the project, from the ideation stage all the way up to you getting to this point where people have seen your project
Yep.
and have given you the green light to say and the support, financial support,
Yep.
to take this to the next level.
Yep.
People that are qualified to do that.
Yep.
So in terms of this idea, where did it start?
Oh, good. This is personal. I have a friend who I think is one of the smartest person. Um, it's two parts of this, because I remember you and I were talking about something similar maybe 5 or 6 years ago about making something to help people who have a mental strain and all that type of
Right.
information. But this one, I had a friend who is one of the smartest person. Like, is an engineer, is a hardware engineer, and he's actually a rocket scientist.
Yeah.
Like literal rocket scientist.
Right.
Um, And he went through some bad experience with his family, a divorce or that type of stuff. And then it's just downhill from there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This person who we used to sit at the coffee shop and we will be coding or we just talking business and we love systems and we love framework and we will be discussing this. I saw this guy just walk in, no shoes in the winter. And if you know, I was born in Jamaica, but you know, been living in Canada for a long time. And I'm in Ottawa, and Ottawa is one of the coldest places in Canada, outside Winnipeg and places like that. And then I started thinking, like, how can I help? Right? It's so altruistic, but I decided, what if I were to create an app or an LLM, since I'm in AI, that can solve that problem? So what I did was I started looking to say, okay, how big is the problem? Because it's one thing that you have a great idea, you think you have a great idea, but if you have a great idea and no one wants that idea, or you're competing with doing nothing, you can have a great idea, but the other people you're solving it for, they're saying, I don't care. That's not a problem I need to solve. So I started looking deeper into mental strain, how we can use LLM, AI to be empathic. Is it even impossible? Is it even possible to make an empathic AI system that can help people?
Right.
And the more I looked into it, I recognized that yes, there are apps out there to solve that problem for younger people, but there weren't enough out there that's solving the problem in the correct way, in which I think is the correct way, like to remove the restriction, right. There's just too many things you're asking an old person who is isolated. And then I kind of checked. I did some research and I realized that there's a lot of older people who are going to be staying in their homes now, right? Because they're opting to stay home as opposed to going to the seniors home.
Yeah.
So I started looking at that, and the more I look and the more I checked, I found out that 1 in 3 over 45 is going through isolation, mental strain, loneliness.
Yeah.
Right? Then I check again, and over 65, 1 in 4.
Right.
And then then I also check, and it's 164. That number I have to check again. That 164 billion. Right? I'm talking about that's going through 1.4. Yeah, so it's a large number, almost a 250 million people in North America alone that's suffering from mental strain and all that. And so I said, okay, I went first and I started creating an app. So I created an Android and an iOS app.
So
and
you noticed that there was a problem.
Yes.
Solve. You did research and you realized that this problem, you realized the magnitude, you had data behind this problem that you were seeing.
Yes.
And then after that you started to take it to the next step.
Yes. And the next step is, after the research, that's just cursory, like a short amount of information. So that was enough for me to look deeper. Right. And then the more I looked, the more I realized that this is a problem that needed to be solved. But I erroneously thought, okay, the best way to solve it is an app. So I went and I created this Android and iOS app.
Right.
Then as soon as I started showing it to older people, so I'm at the coffee shop, I would wake up early in the morning and I would go to a community center close to where I live. And there's a lot of old people there. So they do their yoga and they will be sitting. So I start asking them, okay, here's what I'm trying to do. Would you mind just test it? And they start saying, there's too much button in my finger, right? They start complaining about all different things. And I realized, oh, shoot. I now need to remove all of those obstacles from it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, your friend had an issue, which made you think about how can you help to solve
that specific
problem. How can you help your friend?
Yes, yes,
to solve an obvious problem that he was having, right?
yeah,
And then you came up with this idea of solving it with the app.
yeah.
So the app itself, you want to take us through the application that you built?
Yes, the application I'll get to the, because there's a, from the app, then I move that into creating a large language model or AI
Right,
solution. The
right,
initial one was an app with AI, but it's not an AI app. It's just an
right,
AI enabled
right,
app,
right,
right? So that one has a lot of screens, just like a regular app. It's beautiful. You can click, and then I realized that when one lady I was talking to, she said, to give me a good idea. She said, okay, if a person is going through mental strain, the last thing they want to do is to go through all these screens,
yeah,
right? Young people might not, that might not be an issue to them, but older people, because they're stressed, so that they're not going to want to do that. They will do the next best thing. So if
yeah,
it might be alcohol, it might be medication
uh-huh,
or something else, right?
uh-huh,
Right? It might be. So I have to say, okay, I go back to the drawing board and say, okay, well, right now we have LLMs, multimodal, where you have computer AI can read, can look at a video, can see what's in the video, it can talk back to you. And that's when I decided I'm gonna let this app be voice only.
right. So what, I mean, what made you, how did you know that you had something to bring to somebody to start to try it out? Like, and why did you do that?
The I am the type of person, if I see a problem, I have this thing where I said, if you're the first one to see a problem, that make you uniquely qualified to start solving the problem.
Right,
Right? So if I see a problem, if I'm going to complain about it, I'm going to say, okay, well, if you're the first person to see that problem, then you're uniquely qualified to start, at least initiate its
right, right,
solution,
right,
right? So that's what I was trying to do initially. I
uh-huh,
said, okay, maybe I can start this, and if it gained traction, I'm doing something good.
mm-hmm,
I have this idea, like, you should be doing good work and do good work.
right,
So while you're doing good work, you should be doing good work,
mm-hmm.
right?
That makes total sense. There's
Yes, yes.
total sense.
But I also, because my entrepreneurial background and framework thinking, I know that even though that's a great idea in my head, it has to be tested, right? I have to come up with a minimum viable product and all that, which is just the basic
Mm.
product, just for
And
people to start using it so I can start learning. It's a learning tool.
and that's exactly what I wanted to get at, because at some point in time you felt like you had that minimum viable product,
Yep.
and you felt like it's now time to start getting feedback
Yes.
on
Yes.
this product, right?
Right.
um
Right.
but a lot of people struggle with that because they don't know when it's at that stage,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So that's why I was kind of picking your brain there to figure out, like,
When
what made you feel like you had enough now
um
to go out there.
I think it's a rule of thumb, as opposed to, it's rather than being an algorithm, it's more heuristics. So rather than for sure, it's more of a feeling. And the good thing about entrepreneur and using framework is that all you need to do is to test it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
If your customer, or the customer, that the people that you think might be your customer, they will tell you, because you're building it for them. You're not
right,
building for yourself. So
right,
once you recognize that you're building whatever you're building, entrepreneur as business should be, is the most selfless thing that there are,
mm-hmm,
right? Because you're always building this thing for someone else.
right,
So in order for you to know when you have to start, there's no clear mark to say, this is when I start. Once you have the idea and you come up with, a minimum viable product could be on a paper.
yeah,
I could just draw it on a paper and
yeah,
then show people on a piece of paper. I used to do that. So, okay, this is what I'm trying to create.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put the button right here. And they say, why here? Why not down here? And it's okay. So why not here? And it's okay, because my finger is too big. And I said, okay. And you take
Mhm.
that down. So
Mhm.
the main idea is to, once you formulate the idea, once I formulate the idea and I talk to a few people, and remember, if you get deep in it, not your friends and family, because family and friends will always support you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
don't use family members and friends initially, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because most family members will support you regardless of what. And then if you use that as
Yeah.
an indication that you should do
Everything
something,
will be great.
it's not good,
Everything is a great idea for
right?
them.
It's for your family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, it's
No,
funny.
that's important too. No, that's important. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So now you had that minimum viable product. You went out there, you started to get feedback. And you said there was a lady that mentioned to you, hey, I don't want to be doing all of that on a app when I'm in, if I'm in that state, right?
Yes, yes,
And that started to you went back into iteration again,
yes, yes,
um to refine your product and improve it, right?
yes, yes. So when she said that, I have a friend, another entrepreneur friend. So I was talking to him also. He was saying, okay, yeah, that makes sense what she was saying. So I said, okay. So I said, okay, you know what? Let's make this multimodal. So the whole idea was to make it where the person can talk to the the app,
Mm-hmm.
right? So my idea, talking exact this is an example of designing for yourself, right?
Right.
So I'm saying, well, what if they have their medicine container and they could show the computer and the computer would say, tell them what's there if they can't see, or remind them, and I'm just start building for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized, when that lady told me that, I said, okay, maybe what I really need is just talk. So if it's only one button they will push
Yeah.
and then talk, that should be the goal,
Yeah.
right? Right?
Yeah.
Because the idea is not to make something beautiful on time that nobody uses,
Yeah.
to make
Yeah.
something that people want and will use.
Want to use. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Oh.
Incidents. I have one more example with this, where you have to be
Mm-hmm.
careful in on how important it is to use frameworks to guide your thought process, and how amazing it is when you put artificial constraint on what you're doing, right? Because remember, I didn't have to use any kind of model. I could just go out and just kind of wing it, like just winging it, ask questions and all that. Like, but now I would have an unbounded function. Like I could just do anything. But if once I give artificial constraint, it's okay. Well, it needs to have one button. Here's,
Mm-hmm.
here's something that I didn't expect. So one lady was trying out this, and she was, at that time, you just press the button and you can just talk back and forth with the AI,
Right.
right? Because the AI will come in and talk when you pause. So it's
Right.
called response on pause.
Right.
That is the technology, right? So um so I said, okay, that's a great, yeah, that will help. And then I realized, if a person is going through mental strain or isolated and lonely and all that, they're going to be talking a lot slower than they would,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're searching for words.
Right. Right.
The AI will start talking and interrupt them every single time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very cool idea if I'm just talking and the AI is talking to me and you're talking. So what I have to go back to the drawing board. That's why it's so important to go iteration. Don't try
Yeah.
to do it
Yeah.
all at once.
Yeah.
Do some, check, refine, iterate, test, and so on. So I went back and I put a press to talk instead, like a
Mm-hmm.
walkie-talkie. So when
Mm-hmm.
you're pressing and she's talking, no, the AI can't interrupt her.
Right.
So
Right.
so you can take as long as you want, right, to think
Mm-hmm.
and get your word. And then when you release the button,
Mm-hmm.
then the AI started processing. The other thing, this is the last thing on this topic before you come back in. Um, the other thing that I learned, it's amazing how much you will learn if you just do not try to be smart, right? You're making this with people, for people. You're not making it for them.
Right.
The other thing I noticed that sometimes the AI depends on how long the person talk. The AI will take a longer time to process the data,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you're moving from audio, right? You're moving from voice to text, transcription,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
vice versa, right? Even though nowadays you have audio to audio, but even that, there's a problem on depends on how long the person talk. So what I try to do with that one, then I show a lady and she was liking that one. I said, okay, use it again and tell me if you like. I didn't tell her what I did. So what I did was when you talk, the answer immediately show up as a text, so you can
Mm-hmm.
start reading immediately.
Mm-hmm.
While the
While it's that
right,
that makes sense. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
So that there's that gap.
right, because there's that, yeah,
People, you lose their attention.
right,
It makes total sense. So this there's we're showing something on the screen here. Do you mind going through what we're looking at?
right. So right now, the first thing, after I started talking to people, this is my process, and it's not just my process. Even Mark, even you would do the same. So I didn't invent this. But what I do after I start talking to people and I see the problem and I start having like the problem statement, like what problem is there? What is the
Mhm.
problem? I will go and start thinking about the business model canvas. I'll put everything on the business model canvas.
Right.
And the reason why I can do and put everything on a business model canvas once I have the main idea, the problem that I'm solving, is because the business model canvas is not meant for execution. It's not a business plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's a business model canvas.
Right.
Even the word canvas say if you're painting,
Yeah.
chances are you can make a lot of change. It's not a painting yet.
Yeah.
If it's still a canvas.
Right.
So it's just an hypothesis. So we'll go and what you're seeing right now is mindful voice.
Mm-hmm.
Went through several iterations of the name, but this is the final name we're using. I will just say, what is the value proposition? So I'm saying, why would someone use this and not other alternative solution?
Right.
And then I will go and say, okay, well, it has uh, coping tools, coping tools involved, crisis detection. So if you have words, if the person is talking about words that might seem suicidal, it will detect that those things are happening and might reach out to someone else, family member, a loved one, caretaker, or so on.
Mhm.
It's used just the UI UX, use
Mhm.
just one button as opposed to a lot of going through a series of menu items trying to find that type of stuff. Privacy first, voice first. That's it's going. We're right now we're trying to form partnerships with government agency, NGOs, and all that, so we can have some stickiness. And then I would just go through the business model canvas. It's just 9 boxes.
Right.
So the right side, based on if you're facing this, the right side, right? And if you're not, then it's the left. But if you're looking from on the computer, the right side is your customer. It's like what you're doing at the customer facing, right?
Yeah.
What you're offering and all that, the channel, how you're reaching them and that. And the left side is like the back office, your
Mhm.
key partnerships and so on. So that's what this basically.
Right.
And again, just to top this off, the importance of just putting all the business on one piece of paper in 9
Yeah.
simple blocks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because a lot of times we run the risk of going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And you forget to zoom out and
Yeah.
look at what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Which can be a bad idea for a business, for you not to zoom out every now and again to see really what you're creating, right? Because as creators are, it's very easy for us to go down into what we're creating and lose sight of, from a high level what we're working on.
True.
Is it really adding the value So the business model canvas, I use it a lot too.
Yep.
I think it's a very good place to kind of recalibrate yourself. So is this the only
No,
one that
so
you have to show us today? Yeah.
no, so I will stop this and share um another screen. Can you see that?
Yeah. Not yet. No, I'm still seeing you.
Okay, you still see me. Okay, all right. So let's go to. Oh yeah, this is a good one. Let me go back to here. So share that one. No. Okay. Yeah, I think you should be seeing this.
Okay, yeah, it's showing now. Yeah.
Yes. So this is another go-to framework that I think is just amazing, right?
Right.
Because when we're talking about the USP, the unique selling proposition, why should someone do business with you and not your competitors?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you need to say, okay, you have to understand the customer from a deeper perspective, and that's where jobs to be done. The JTBD,
Right.
it's a short for jobs to be done. It's a framework that came out of some people who was working at Harvard and elsewhere. Moesta. And this framework is very, very simple, but is very, very powerful. And the idea of jobs to be done kind of look at a business or marketing differently. Most people, when they're thinking about to create an offer for someone, they said, okay, the person has a problem and I'm trying to solve this problem for the person. And this product or service that I'm creating will solve the problem for that person. And that is the business. Well, jobs to be done take it in somewhat of a different way, almost counterintuitive way, where it said, okay, don't look at it that way as a person has just a problem, but the person is performing a job.
Right.
Person has a desired state, a desired goal where they want to be in, and they're not there yet. And your goods or service is trying to help them make progress.
Right.
So they're at point A and they need to be at point B. That's their desired position. But they're performing, so they're hiring your product. Right? They're hiring your product and they're firing some other product.
Right.
So what are the decision? What are the hiring decision and what is the firing decision?
Right.
So let me give you an example. Starbucks. In Canada, for those who are not in Canada, right? There's a coffee shop, a chain of coffee shops called Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons. And Tim Hortons is, I call it my coffees because I can go to different coffee shop and I can work from different coffee shops. So I usually joke around and I'm talking to people in a boardroom and said, I have many coffees around the city. They say, oh yeah, but it's really a coffee shop, right? So the other day I was explaining the same idea to a friend of mine. I said, okay, look at that lady over there. Why did that old lady, hire Tim Hortons coffee? Maybe she is lonely. I'm just assuming. Maybe she's not lonely, but I'm just for argument's sake.
Right.
Maybe she's lonely. So one of the reasons why she's hiring this coffee is because she's trying to get out of some kind of lonely state that she's in. And I said, for me, I'm not lonely. I'm a loner, but I'm not lonely. But I hire Tim Hortons because I'm trying to do something functional. She's trying to solve a problem that is emotional. And I said, okay, see all those people over there just talking? Like there were like 6 young people just having a good time talking. They're not even drinking the coffee. They hire the same coffee to solve a different problem, which is social.
Right.
Right. So there's always person who's trying to solve a problem or hiring your business. You have to look at it from 3 different ways.
Yeah.
There's a social job. There's a functional job.
Right.
It could be an emotional job.
Right.
And that's what the jobs to be done framework that I have here. If you look, you will say maybe it's too small. Let me see if I can make it bigger.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
You can see it? Yeah. Okay.
So what are the insights that that you got out of this when you applied this framework to your project?
Yes. So when I applied, it's everything that you see there is as a result of when I applied it. So for one, it shows me the current alternatives,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the current alternative, sometimes you will be shocked that it's not another competitor in the same space, not because you're in software or you're solving a problem because you have a movie theater. The movie theater is still trying to solve the same problem or
Right.
doing the same job as a pool table place
Mm-hmm.
or a bar,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or a sports venue. The moment, so that's why it kind of told me that I wasn't even thinking about talking to a pet. That was a funny one. Talking to a pet would be a current alternative solution to mindful voice,
Right. Right.
right?
Yeah.
You understand?
Right.
That would
Right.
be a functional job. But if you
Right.
go down to the emotional job, like the first emotional job where it says feel heard without judgment,
Mm-hmm.
if you go over, it will kind of explain to you the circumstances that they would be in at that time. So when you
Mm-hmm.
take in account not just the job, but how the circumstances will have an impact on
Mm-hmm.
the job and
Mm-hmm.
also on the current alternative
Mm-hmm.
solution, it gives you a deeper way of looking at how to design solution for real people by looking at them from a multifaceted way and not just on a plane like it's a straight line. Most people are much more complex.
But it makes sense, total sense. But so a lot of people will look at all of these current alternatives and they might start to get demotivated. They'll feel like, well, there are so many different things out there that's solving the problem. Why should I continue with my
Good
current
question.
solution?
Yeah, very good question. So remember, in all of this, there's also positioning, right? So you will position your product, your goods or services in a way. So you're positioning, you said, okay, one of them is to talk to the dog or journal. If a person is really distressed,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's very difficult for them to call a hotline. Maybe they just don't want to do that, right? Because of the stigma associated with that type of connection.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe journaling is just too effortful for them to get out of bed and all that stuff, but their phone might be right there. So it all depends on how you're positioning. Your
Right.
positioning is also important because you're not trying to solve the whole problem like we spoke about earlier.
Uh-huh.
We're positioning like, so you could, so for me, I say, okay, one of my competitor is calm and better help, but they position themselves as we have a lot of psychologists
Right.
on board, right? We
Mhm.
have, but in these days, I could just get all the different research paper and we can just create a vector space. What I'm talking about is to train the AI to learn every single thing in that space and can answer the question and then use a knowledge graph to go down a particular pathways to find a solution. But I chose not to do that because
Mhm.
I just want to be a preventative.
Mhm.
I want to be
Mhm.
in the space where I'm trying to prevent people from getting where they need clinical help.
Right.
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 So positioning is good. So this will tell you when you see the current alternative solution, rather than it overwhelm you, you will say, now I know how to best position what I have to solve that
Yeah.
problem better than
Yeah. To
how
to
they're.
make your product unique.
Yes,
It's
yes.
it's probably very similar to the blue ocean, red ocean strategy, eh?
It's very similar. A matter of fact, what I just said, part of what I said is because some of these model, what I learned, what I learned is if you start going deeper and deeper and deeper and treat these things as systems, you'll realize that there's a lot of overlap between some of these models.
Mm-hmm.
But you shouldn't say, okay, there's overlap, so they're the same. They're still not the same,
Yeah.
but there's an overlap. So coming to what you just said about the blue ocean, that's one of the things that I decide to do. In the blue ocean, what we do is we eliminate. So we find something that costs a lot to do, and you
Mm-hmm.
can eliminate that.
Yeah,
You
and just for the viewers out there, the Blue Ocean strategy is also a framework.
also, yes,
So it's something that you can look up to
to
get
think.
a deeper understanding of what we're talking about here. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, okay. Yeah, so the Blue Ocean jobs to be done, and it's the same thing, because remember what we did here was I was showing how we could use the business model canvas,
Mm-hmm.
the USP on the unique selling proposition on the on the business model canvas, and how we can enhance it using jobs to be done.
Right.
And then we can enhance jobs to be done with the Blue Ocean strategy.
Yeah.
And, what that is, it has a few different parts, but I'm going to talk about the main part. So in a Blue Ocean strategy, the idea here is that in any market, you have the red ocean where there's a lot of competition.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, there's a lot of blood. Therefore, that's why they call it the red Blue Ocean strategy. So they don't want to be in the red ocean.
Right.
So what you try to do is to look at the market, and then you try to go in a blue ocean where you create a complete new market, or you go to non-customers.
Right.
Right. So you will get, for example, if you're running say a movie theater, and
Mm-hmm.
imagine in the movie theater you also have a bar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not competing with all, and if all the rest of movie theater only have movies,
Yeah.
maybe you just try to carve out some non-customer who don't like movies but like to drink or like to play pool or something like that.
Some jobs that have not been done yet, right? There's
Yes.
not a product to solve
Yes.
those jobs yet, right?
Yes. Yes. Unmet needs.
Unmet needs, exactly.
Unmet needs. You
Exactly.
get
There's
completely
always there, and that's what that framework helps you to do.
immediately. Yeah.
That's just great. So you use the jobs to be done, and you were able to position
Yep.
yourself better,
Yeah.
rather than going out there making the mistake building a product that's exactly the same like another solution that's out there.
Yep.
You were able to position your product better, before spending a lot on your product to see that, right?
Exactly.
So that's just the beauty of frameworks, and how much they will help someone that's building a product, right? Save
Yes.
you a lot of resources.
Yes. And the other part that I think people don't talk too much about the value of framework, it also provides us with shared vocabulary. There's one of the unsung hero in framework thinking, where I think we need to put a little bit more emphasis on, and that's what we're trying to do here at Tool Thinker.
Yeah.
Is framework also give your entire team and your stakeholders a shared vocabulary where we can talk about jobs, right? And everyone who understand framework will say, oh, you're talking about, okay, the work that the person was doing, and they need your product or service to help get that done. Right? It's very easy. If I'm talking about unique selling proposition and a business model canvas, and everyone else who use this will just have a shared vocabulary. Say, okay, so what about the market segment? Right? What about your key activity or your key resources or your cost structure? It's just so easy to talk coherently and tame complexity much better than just try to use just words that is not based on anything.
Right.
So just by using framework, it will clarify your thought a lot better. And then you now know, oh, wow, this is what I was thinking I'm doing, but I should be doing this other thing instead.
Right.
Because it helped to clarify your direction and give you a better barometer, or like a compass or something to get to where you're going.
Yeah, and to explain that even more, for this particular project that you just brought to Invest Ottawa, and they were amazed by this project. How long have you been working on this project?
It's not, because as you know, we're working on several projects, and most people said you shouldn't be working on several projects, we should be working on one. Unfortunately for me, I have you on my team, and we work asynchronously. So while I'm working on one thing, you're doing the next thing, and we team up again, and so on and so on.
Right.
And it for
Happy
me,
to have you on the
it's
team
about
as
3 months.
Mhm.
3 months. About 3 months.
About 3 months, yeah.
About 3 months to get to this point where
Okay.
I wouldn't say this would be the norm for everyone, because
Right.
we use a lot of AI, because we're AI engineers. So we use a lot of AI to automate some of the things. So we have the idea
And a lot of frameworks.
we have all
A
the
lot of
frameworks.
frameworks that accelerated our business ideas
Yes,
to get it to this point so fast, right?
yes, yes.
Because in normal circumstances it take people
Years,
years to
years.
get to this
Yeah.
this point where they have something that's ready to go, depending on what startup you're working on. But
Right. And how much the vertical that they're in, right? So
Okay.
some people, it's just going to take a longer time if you're trying to do something in life science, just because
Mhm.
of compliance and the laws and all the regulation that you have to go through.
Mhm.
But right now, when you combine framework thinking with LLM and large language models, that's where there's not much you can't do the correct way really, really fast. It doesn't
Right.
mean that you're going to be a trillionaire in a week. You
Right.
still, because if you finish fast and there's always a bottleneck, right? You still have to explain your offer to people. You
Mhm.
have to make sure that they know that this is solving their problem. But one of the things with framework, it speed up our thought process,
Mhm.
right? And it tames complexity.
Mhm.
So, and then when you combine that with LLM to help you do that, then you get a 10x
Yeah.
speed
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
and get it. But you still need, at some point, you're going to slow down
Yeah.
at some point, because you need to talk to the customer. You can't skip over the customer. You need to, but as far as the complexity and try to find if there's a job, if it is enough traction, right? We really can move really, really fast today. And we can do more than one things on I know this is the last thing on this topic before we move on, but I just want people to know that we now have a set of tools called framework thinking.
Mhm.
And then that can speed up your thought process so you can ask better questions. I always say, and you know that I keep saying this is the first time in history where questions are more important than answers.
Mhm.
Because all the answers are out there
Mhm.
in LLM. But if you do not have the right questions, not because
Mhm.
they're there, mean you have access to them.
Mhm.
Framework thinking, through the lens of framework thinking, we can ask better questions. For example, imagine you have an idea and you're not sure if it's a great idea. And you said, okay, I want to create a business to sell water bottles in the desert or something like that. That should be obvious that whether or not that's a good idea, right? Because that desert could have a lot of water in the oasis or whatever. But just for argument's sake, well, imagine you just use LLM or you go on Tool Thinker and say, okay, SWOT analysis looks good. Right?
Mhm.
SWOT analysis looks good. And boom, immediately, in no time, it's going to tell you, well, this is the strength, the
Mhm.
weakness,
Mhm. Mhm.
opportunity, and the threats.
Mhm.
Right? Just
Mhm.
just like that.
Mhm.
Right? If you use another framework, for example, the PEST, you'll recognize the political, economic, and the technology, all of that, just like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right? So we just all of the complexity just disappear. You might need more time to rework your idea, but you're not starting from scratch anymore. And
Right.
these are the things that big companies has been using, and it has been the secret sauce in
Yeah.
startup
Yeah.
and really business at scale. I don't know of any business that scale that didn't use
Yeah.
framework a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. And it's only the secret sauce if you know how to use it properly, right?
True.
Because a lot of people, they just they don't spend enough time to really understand how a framework really works, and they're applying it. But if you're not applying it the right way, you
Yep.
might just say that it doesn't work when
Right.
it truly does. But most frameworks are tested and true. They've stand the test of time, and they've gotten to that level where you know, most people can attest to say that, hey, I've used this. So many examples out there, you know,
Yep.
like Airbnb with the business model
Yep.
canvas.
Yep.
You know, um
And
countless.
there's one where they call like business development by a guy who teaches at Stanford, and because Stanford is in Silicon Valley,
Mm-hmm.
they use almost all of those companies kind of use customer discovery, customer development. Then you combine that with the lean movement, the lean framework. Then they combine that with design thinking, where you empathize with the customer, you ideate, and so on. The 5 steps of that. So these are just things that work.
Yeah.
They work, and they're going to continue to work for a while. I think.
Yeah.
Right now, I think if you really want to not only survive AI, but thrive,
Mm-hmm.
you need to start using framework thinking,
Yeah.
because the people at the bottom, the someone said this, and I think it's true. The highest value creation is your thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
your imagination.
Mm-hmm.
The second value is communication, how you communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Framework thinking can help in both those things.
And both of them. Yes.
The tutor, and the last one is the implementation, where the implementation is at the bottom, and that's going to get automated away.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you're going to implement, no, so you're going to have to be a thinker, a creator, a person who's a strategist, and in all of those things, it's going to require better ways to think.
Yeah.
If you can think better, you're going to ask better questions, and you're going to give the LLM and AI better instructions. So I don't think it's just better questions anymore. I think better questions plus instructions.
Right. Which is so important. That's just great advice for people out there.
Yeah.
Because you know, AI is just everywhere right now. These LLMs, and knowing how to use them is probably one of the best skill that anyone can have, and the most valued skill right now, even if people don't realize it yet, but it is probably the most valued skill. If you can, the more you can pull out of these LLMs, is, you know, the, the more competitive you will be in whatever space that you're in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, but you know, we could talk about this forever. So yeah, great project. Brought this project to Invest Ottawa. It got accepted. What's next?
So the next thing I'm trying to do right now is to get into the seniors home, so they can start testing these things. Get a lot more people testing it, so we can get back and start coding. I don't want to say code, because we don't code anymore. Right? We also use AI to code.
Yeah.
So, but the funny thing something that you mentioned earlier about the question, and that LLM is so important to ask better questions. Even in coding and creating software, when I'm stuck in some of these software iteration, when I'm making something and it can't find the problem, I will use a framework. I will say, find the root cause using 5 whys. And sometimes I said, okay, use the fishbone diagram, and find the root cause. Or I will say something like this: if you're going to do the product design requirements, I would say, okay, do that in the form of the intelligence system, which is a framework. And then it will design with loop back and feedback loop, feed forward, and all that, right? Very difficult for a person who have no idea about framework thinking to get that level of intricacies, real real world software that's well designed. I use framework in all my prompting when I'm coding, when I'm doing AI coding. So the question you
Yes.
asked, though, let's get back to let me answer the question. You said, okay, what's next? Well, next, obviously we're working on tool thinker. We have to make sure that continue. We have to do things in parallel, right? But you have that covered. So I'll just keep pushing this. I still in the customer validation stage,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think the customer discovery, I'm convinced now, even though I need some more work on that, that there is a problem here to be solved.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, almost 250 million people, despite 8 billion people in the world, is going to their bed in complete isolation, loneliness, and fatigue, mental strain. And I'm not talking about people who are clinically ill, like mental illness. I'm just talking of regular people. Right? So, and that's only going to grow more in the coming years when AI and automation start taking a lot of these jobs, until we kind of understand how we can, because there's creative destruction. I don't think this is going to be the end of the world and all that, like other people think that, but this is definitely different, where this innovation is disrupting everything, right? And again, that is a good reason why people should be looking at framework thinking, multimodal thinking, and other things, mental tools like that. So that's what we're doing right now. That's I just keep going. Like I need to do customer validation, where once we have enough information, I can show one last thing, what the app actually looks like, if I have enough time.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Can you just show that? I think it's okay. So okay, so share. So I'm going to unshare, stop sharing here. Okay, and then we're going to go to share again, and this. So that's what the app looks like.
Right.
Okay, so let me see if I could actually go through the app and see if you tell me if you see anything's changing.
You're right.
Can you see it change?
Yeah, it's changing. Yep.
Okay, cool. And we could sign in, and this is what the UI UX looks like. So we could say, I'm not sure if it's working, but I will say, I lost my dog and I'm very sad, and I feel very, very sad. Right?
Oh, great.
Yes. So see what it did there? It shows that quickly. And then what I said, and
I'm truly sorry to hear about your loss.
and then it starts
Losing
out.
a pet can feel like losing a family member, and it's perfectly normal to feel this deep sadness. Grieving takes time, and it's different for everyone. It can be helpful to talk about your feelings with someone who understands. Reach out to people in your life, or there are many support groups available where you can share with others who have gone through a similar experience. Would you like me to play some soothing music now? Start Spotify, mood, calm.
Right. And if they didn't hear it, they can.
I'm
press
truly
it
sorry to
again,
hear
start
about
it
your
again.
loss.
Or they can, yeah. Can you say that in French? Can you give me the same answer in French? So it says it's going to talk French, so it's also multilingual.
Right.
Je suis vraiment désolée d'entendre parler de votre
Wow.
perte. Perdre
Yeah.
un animal de
And
compagnie
it
peut
speaks
ressembler à...
several languages, maybe 150 different languages.
Yeah,
So
depending on the user, I guess the user profile, you can set which language you want it to as the default language,
yes,
right?
yes, so the onboarding. So what it's a complete audio first, voice first. So even the onboarding, you just talk, and it will get persist in a database if you want on your computer or on your device. So it can remember who you are and all that. It also can turn off the light or interact with the physical environment if there is IoT device there. So there's a lot of thing packed into it already. But as we
Right.
spoke about we're not trying to design this for ourselves to prove that we're smart. We're trying to design something for people that actually solve problems. So that's where we are with this one. So
Well, something that I really like about this project is, yeah, you mentioned it earlier. It's the where the solution is um for the person that's going through the situation.
Yep.
It doesn't wait until the problem becomes clinical.
Right.
It catches the issue before that, which
Yes.
most of the solutions out there, as we were talking about the red ocean,
Yes.
they are catching the problem when it's already there.
Yes.
The person is already clinical.
Right.
This one
Yep.
is helping that person not to get to that stage.
Exactly.
Which is just that's just great. Like,
And the blue ocean part of that is the part to deal with people in the state when it gets to that point is more expensive because it's the 200 plus per hour for a psychologist.
Right.
So the blue ocean, in the blue ocean framework, it's supposed to eliminate the biggest cost. That's why I did that way. So I eliminate that cost.
Mm-hmm.
And then I reduce the other one, meaning reduce the amount of buttons and screens.
Mm-hmm.
And then I raise the engagement and increase with different language.
Yeah.
And then I create this thing where the IoT, and it can talk to your camera, it can turn off your phone, it can text, it can use telephony. So it doesn't have to be on the internet. So on the onboarding, if the caregiver, for example, is when the caregiver was setting this up, if that's the case, she could say, okay, if anything wrong, like if they start talking crazy, send me a text or an email.
Yeah.
So it can already deal with the environment around you.
Yeah.
So it doesn't just stay in the digital world, it branches out into the real world outside that. So for example, a person who is going through mental stress or mental strain, imagine we have I tested out with smart bulbs. So it will just turn down the light or put the light in a different tone,
right,
or different color for calm. I started playing nature's music, like a stream and all that, right? So I really thought it can walk you through meditation and all that. So I really, without jobs to be done and the design thinking about, because design thinking, the first step in design thinking is to empathize, right? And then ideate, and then the second step is, after you emphasize, you want to come up with the problem statement. And then part of it is, what are the person's feeling, what are they seeing, what are they saying? Those are empathy. You come up with an empathy map, right? And the other thing I did, this is the last thing on this, for strategy and how powerful frameworks are. In the blue ocean strategy, you have what's called the strategic canvas, where I looked at all the different factors that a competitor would be competing on, right? So for example, number one, I just said that. The first one is, they're going to say, well, we have psychologists and all that stuff, but I just eliminate that. Right? So if you have that on the x-axis and you have 1 to 5 on the y-axis, and I said, okay, everything that's cost a lot that they're competing on, I either eliminate it or reduce it. And all the value that the customer needs, like ease of use, frictionless, privacy, I increase those. So I reduce the highest cost, and increase the highest value. And that in the middle is value innovation.
I mean, wow, there's so much that you've done already.
Right.
I'm excited, and for sure we're gonna keep the Tool Tinker viewers. We're gonna give them an update on the progress of this project as it go on. But Roydell Clark, I mean, my mentor, my friend. Thanks a lot for coming on.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Lots of information in this for people to find useful, and
Yes,
be
and we'll try to make
beneficial.
this. We'll try to make it ongoing thing where
Yeah.
we come and we talk and discuss what's happening in AI, how
Right.
AI is affecting tool thinking or framework thinking, and we're using framework thinking
Right.
in our own business.
Right.
And we're using framework thinking to push to do marketing. We're using framework thinking to do design. We're using framework to thinking to do a lot of different things. So it's a very cool discussion is coming up. This is our first podcast, and I want to congratulate you. You're the one that said, let's do it now. And I'm saying, wait until next year. Because now we can show in real time how we're using framework thinking to do a real business.
That's it. Catch you next week or the week after, but we'll definitely continue to do this.
Yes, this is going to be ongoing.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good day.
Cool. Bye.
Peace.